The ruined skyscrapers of the Umbraspal barrens sprawled across the horizon like a graveyard of steel and glass, its towers leaning precariously against one another, waiting to topple over. The air was thick with the hum of malfunctioning holographic billboards that occasionally flashed garbled advertisements, casting eerie, stuttering colours over the cracked streets of the long-forgotten city. Long ago, a great unknown calamity decimated the population, and the ensuing collapse of civilization easily drove out whoever remained. Subsequent generations refused to return, considering the place cursed, and over time the Umbraspal barrens remained a little visited, often ignored location within Naganai's sphere of influence, occasionally being resettled by ambitious settlers before soon being abandoned once again, with only the truly desperate, decrepit and despicable calling the place home. Lictor Sabistra Zalvir, of the Order of the Infernal Harmony, feared none of the dangers of this place, as she led what remained of her forces down the ominous streets. The air was heavy with a suffocating silence, broken only by the crunch of debris underfoot, or the occasional grunt of exertion from one of the cadets, which she quickly punished them for. Sabistra was no stranger to pain, being a proud inquisitor of Balzul Thul, though no pain compared to that of failure. Nobody spoke. Certainly the fact that they had failed in their mission to eliminate the Outsider and his team was without a shadow of a doubt, though the attack that occurred afterwards caught them all by surprise, forcing the Order to retreat and abandon the town where they had been awaiting the Outsider's return. At least, the fact that many had fled in the aftermath of the chaos meant it was simple enough to get away and give the unknown party the slip. Likely also after the Outsider. The new group had quickly moved on, heading straight towards the docks to steal several ships and sailing upstream before the forces of Commander Cocaine responded to the chaos. They had escaped the hostile forces that converged on Cypherport, but they couldn't escape the consequences.
Lictor, are you sure we should go through with this?
Slara whispered under her breath from beside her, the woman contorting her expression into a snarl as the scalded left side of her face flared up in pain.
We've suffered heavy losses. We could simply walk away. We need to rebuild our numbers in any case.
I am, Sabistra snapped back. You have served me and the Order well, and your questions will be answered tonight. Much is occurring that you are not yet privy to.
As you say, Lictor.
Slara dutifully bowed her head.
Good. We've arrived,
the Lictor snapped back, not bothering to look back to her second-in-command. Ahead of them were the shattered remains of an ancient complex, the jagged husk of its main structure looming up at them like the carcass of a long-dead beast. Whatever this building once was had been lost to time, but now it stared at them ominously.
There's nobody here,
a gruff voice spoke out from behind them. Vexar was a stocky Zarok with heavy cybernetic modifications, a face crisscrossed by burn scars, and a dead mechanical eye. The Order's chief interrogator took the rear, keeping an eye out for anyone tailing them.
They're here, Sabistra corrected, and watching us. Tread lightly.
Lictor, I am detecting scans pinging us.
Zephyric, a Corrigan technical auxiliary recently promoted after the death of Zrul, whispered just low enough for her to hear.
Got some other active signals around us. Might be hidden turrets on standby.
Stand down and remain where you are,
Sabistra ordered, and the disciplined regulators immediately obeyed as they halted.
Slara, with me.
The Lictor calmly walked forward, mockingly raising her hands, indicating for Slara to do the same. The Force Mage hesitantly obeyed, not spotting the threat, but knowing it was there.
We have suffered enough theatrics as of late,
Sabistra sneered under her breath, before she looked out into the night and declared to the hidden shadows.
If you wanted us dead, we'd already be corpses. Enough of this theatre.
One by one, 5 hunched figures suddenly appeared from the gloom, their silhouettes sharp against the fog and dim ruins. Clad in black, angular combat armor with glowing red visors, none carried any visible weapons, though Slara knew the foul reputation of their employer well enough to know the figures were far from helpless. With a sudden blur of motion, one of the figures leapt from the rooftop ahead and landed in a crouch before approaching and removing their mask, revealing a pale face riddled with scars and a pair of golden, unnatural eyes that flicked between the two women, though neither of them recognized the species or had any sense of the gender. Though despite this, certain facial traits looked uncannily familiar.
Follow. Now.
The figure addressed them in halting speech, as if the simple words were difficult to speak, before suddenly turning without bothering to address the remaining regulators.
You heard them,
Lictor Sabistra confirmed, striding after the strange soldier, noting the gait of their walk was slightly off. As an inquisitor of Balzul Thul, she had long developed an eye for detail, and there were many strange ticks of the soldier that caught her eye. The soldier led them through the collapsed building ahead, their movements precise as though they knew the ruins intimately. At last, they stopped before what appeared to be the great rusted door of a vault, passing by the ancient rusted control panel, and instead carefully sliding back a false panel in the nearby wall to reveal a much more modern-looking keypad. Typing in a complicated code, they heard the whirring of electronics for about a minute, until the door opened, revealing well-oiled components behind the disheveled camouflage. Faint green lights blinked along the disheveled corridor up ahead. Zephyric gasped at sensing the sudden deluge of power through the derelict systems, and as the group went down the corridor, they could clearly see that the room wasn't an old vault at all. More likely, it was some kind of repurposed corporate black site. The large blast door quickly shut behind them, before another in front of them opened up, clearly utilizing an airlock-style security system. The beleaguered regulators began to tense up as they heard voices within, as the door ahead widened, and the lictor led them into a large, dimly lit cavern of steel and concrete, humming faintly with the sound of overworked machinery and flickering holograms. The air carried a metallic tang, mingled with a faint scent of ozone and the lingering dampness.
Gods! Slara muttered under her breath. What's in those tanks?
Indeed. Lining the nearest wall were several medical tanks, some cobbled together out of scrap metal, and as the Force Mage subtly looked closer, she could see the mutilated, agonized face of a person. Shuffling figures moved between workstations and interactive boards, idly making notes and paying no attention to what was going on around them, like mindless automatons. They didn't matter, simply following the orders of their master, who awaited them in the center.
Lictor,
Dr. Grine greeted Sabistra with a curt nod of his head, his heavy facial scars squirming as he did.
It is most unfortunate to hear of your failure to kill the outsider.
Sabistra did not immediately answer, but rather turned to her exhausted regulators.
You'll rest here until we need to redeploy.
You... Grine snapped to an attendant, covered from head to toe in medical gear, though Sabistra did note the occasional peak of heavily mutilated tissue underneath that looked to be peeling away. Clearly one of Grine's creations, and the alchemist had clearly been experimenting with something new as of late. Lead them to the dorms and give them room Delta.
Slara, make sure nobody gets too curious, Sabistra added, and her second-in-command dutifully nodded, leading the rest of the regulators deeper into the complex.
No further words were said until the doors closed behind them, and they could talk freely.
The outsider and his group proved much more deadly than our intel suggested, Sabistra finally growled, feeling the sting of defeat run bitter once again. The Redeemer was a formidable but foolish asset, and Frost held his own. His companions also proved to be much more potent than we thought. Had the Redeemer not been hasty in the ambush, we may have succeeded. We lost many good regulators that night.
Not good enough.
A deep, rough voice growled out, as the largest Zarek Sabistra had ever met strode over to them.
And your recruits can be replaced.
They can, Sabistra admitted with a shrug. Our intelligence network is intact, despite our physical losses, and the Redeemer paid well enough on top of what our mutual friends sent our way. I can get us back to operational fitness within a few months.
Good.
Master Cull nodded in approval.
I have names I'll send your way to speed that up, though they won't be from the Legion itself.
Rejects? Grine asked.
In a way,
Cull acknowledged.
Questions are being asked, and I will not risk my cover.
General Opathu suspects?
Sabistra asked curiously.
Not him.
Cull shook his head.
Another is getting curious.
Oh, yes, Captain. Yes, they are.
He whispered the last part under his breath. Any fruit from your position at the school? Sabistra asked.
My position at the school is tenuous at best. Cull shrugged. I've noted potential recruits and molded them as such, but such a task is beneath me.
We must all sacrifice in the name of power, old friend.
Another voice calmly called out, as a Nira in intricate black wizard robes casually sidled up to them.
Our time will come.
Zvazul then looked to Lictor Sabistra.
Did you find out anything concerning my inquiry? We found out little about this Emerald King cult.
The Inquisitor shook her head.
The Redeemer said little of the time surrounding his leaving of the Church of Cyrus and his worship of the Emerald King, but his zeal was apparent for all to see. I would argue that in itself is telling.
Indeed. The Nira chuckled dryly.
Some members of the court find it concerning, but I just find it amusing. Cults normally are, but this one could be useful to us if only we could discover more.
That is of trivial concern, Grine snapped, looking to Sabistra. We are isolated here, it's true, but we've heard ill news nonetheless. What happened?
We received information that the outsider would be at Cypherport soon for a job, and the species of the contacts they'd be meeting. The Lictor sighed. Though we didn't know the specific date, we prepared for a rapid deployment, headed there in advance and tapped our contacts. When an employee of a Corvin Enterprises depot spotted them and informed us, we knew it was time to get to work.
All the possible advantages you could prepare for, and you failed. Grine sneered at Sabistra. There will be a reckoning with the court for that.
Now, Zvazul hissed in amusement. I would not be so hasty to lambast the good Lictor for her misfortunes with the outsider. Let us not forget, Grine, you failed too, and due to the same outsider at that. Though you seem to be faring well for one of the most wanted bounties in the city. My wards have clearly held out. Have you had any other issues, Doctor?
No. Grine shook his head. My operations haven't been compromised, and you forget that I've conducted my great work for many years, despite constant attempts to stop me. 2 of my previous hideouts have been uncovered, but that's acceptable. I've left nothing there but false trails that will frustrate efforts.
Good,
Zvazul hissed, before looking to Grime with a challenging, hungry, serpentine smirk.
It would be quite the shame if you were to become a liability.
The threat was clear, and Grine snarled, immediately noting Cull's subtle shift in stance as he mentally prepared to aid his friend. Grine was no fool. The veteran warrior was powerful and intelligent, despite his clear mental instability, and though Grine was wary of him, he had plans and contingencies in place if he ever needed to kill Cull. But he knew little of the Nira's full capabilities, despite their time spent together. Zvazul or Vashil as he was also known, had mostly kept to himself, occasionally conducting unknown business on behalf of the court, but always returning to maintain the powerful wards that kept Grind's presence cloaked from all attempts to find him. He knew so little about the wizard, except that they were strong based on the magic he'd seen them cast, and that made him nervous. Still, Grind was not without teeth either, and he had slain arrogant wizards before for less.
"Watch your tongue!"
Grind coldly snapped at Svarjul.
"My mission was a success, and though my discovery was unfortunate, I was being hunted regardless. We gained much favor with the Killer Clown. His part in the plan is of paramount importance, and we needed him on our side, even if he is ignorant of our aspirations."
"As much as I hate to interrupt," Carl chuckled, "I would prefer to hear the rest of what Sabistra has to say for herself. I can't stay here for long. What happened after?"
"We found the contacts Frost's group were to rendezvous with," the lictor continued. "It was simple enough to convince them to go to the main bar in town, which we had identified as the ideal ambush point. We did learn some interesting things from them. However—"
"Such as?" Svarjul prompted.
"They told us that Corvin Enterprises has an interest in an area accessible from the river," Sabistra smirked, "though they did not know any of the details."
"We do know a contingent from Corvin Enterprises has headed somewhere in that direction, and not an insignificant number either," Carl added. "Enough that General Commander Opathu is worried about Corvin Enterprises' intentions."
"An interesting development," Gride admitted, "especially considering their ongoing war with Mirrodin and Shaskazaki. Continue."
Sabistra nodded.
"The ambush went as planned. The Redeemer went straight for the outsider and separated him from the rest of his group. However, Frost's companions proved to be much more formidable than we had anticipated." "And the status of the Redeemer?" Svarjul asked.
"Dead."
Sabistra shook her head. "Unfortunate," Grind sighed. "I intended to harvest him the moment he outlived his usefulness. Ideal Ogar samples are hard for me to come by these days."
At that, Sabistra laughed, reaching into one of the pouches on her armor, producing a vial, and casually tossing it Grind's way.
"My thanks."
Grind smirked, examining the vial of preserving liquid keeping the fat, severed finger within, reasonably intact.
"You have no idea how many samples I have been offered on the shadow market that turn out to be fake." "I can imagine." Sabistra snorted in amusement. "Regardless, though our targets gave us the slip, we expected them to return soon. Most of the trash that were there during the ambush left to aid their fallen comrades, or just through sheer cowardice. So we put a notice out among the public bounty networks that Frost would soon be there." "Getting others to do the dirty work,"
Svarjul hissed in amusement.
"As a plan B, it's unreliable, but considering your losses, it was a good call."
"Then what happened?" Carl snarled.
"A large group arrived via the wilderness and began indiscriminately killing anyone they saw."
Sabistra gave a deep sigh.
"They were highly formidable, laying waste to the town before taking several of the boats and exiting along the river. We weren't foolish enough to follow. From what we saw, they had extensive weaponry and were heavily modified with cybernetics. I don't even think they suffered losses during the attack." "Interesting," Grind noted. "Could they have been following the outsider?"
"Possibly," Sabistra agreed. "I can confirm the outsider and his group still live, as they've been attending school," Carl noted.
"A shame," Sparzul sighed. "I fed the Redeemer that list of names with the hope that he'd remove a few of them." "That was you!" Sabistra exclaimed. "Oh, yes." The Nira chuckled darkly. "The court wanted several of the names dead, and I took the liberty of adding a few more."
"That was reckless," Carl snorted.
"True, but as we cannot act openly against our problems, we may as well utilize others to do so," Grime pointed out. The paladin the Temple of Hope has assigned to lead the manhunt after me is particularly powerful, and Devil's Daughter has forced me to relocate more than once.
Suddenly, the sound of an alarm blared out, and Grian snapped his head around in confusion, looking towards one of his assistants that had rushed to a nearby console. The complex quickly came to life with movement as assistants and guards began running around. One of the doors to the side of the room burst open as Sabistra's regulators quickly joined them.
"What was that?"
Zephyr asked, the short Corrigan looking around the chamber in concern.
"That's a proximity alarm,"
Carl snarled, looking to one of the technicians who was monitoring the cameras.
"What is it?"
"I don't know," the technician exclaimed, tapping on some keys as they tried to find an alternate angle. "I've lost visual."
"How is that possible?"
the warrior asked with a snarl, before he furiously looked to Sabistra.
"None should know we're here. You must have been followed."
"Regardless,"
Svarzor interrupted them all, raising his voice before any arguments ensued.
"We have a problem. Let's find out who it is first. If they're mercenaries, the fact that they've been able to locate us means we should try and recruit them before resorting to killing them."
"Unlikely,"
Cole growled, before calling out into the room.
"Alpha team, on me. We'll reinforce our eyes above and get ready for a fight."
Several of the silent guards quickly formed up on Cull, who wasted no time in scanning his palm, quickly exiting the bunker to take up ambush positions.
"You," Grian hissed at one of his assistants. "Get a drone up there."
The assistant did nothing, looking to its creator in what must have been its expression of confusion.
"Looks like you built this one simple," Sabistra grunted. "Zephyr, do as he says. Find out who it is." "Yes, Lictor,"
Zephyr obeyed, getting to the controls and quickly manning the drone. Looking at the monitor, the camera feed showed the top of one of the surrounding buildings, and Zephyr quickly piloted the drone to fly a safe distance above several rapidly approaching figures.
"They've already taken out some of the cameras. It's safe to assume they know we're here. Who the hell are these guys?"
Svarzor asked, noting the clunky but purposeful steps of the clear vanguard, with several others in tattered rags behind them.
"Doesn't matter," Grian snarled. "If they've tracked me to this area, they get one chance to stand down and cooperate with us. Otherwise we'll destroy them. We can't risk them getting away."
He moved over to the microphone on the desk and activated the drone speakers.
"Whoever you are to be commended for finding me."
Grian sneered at the unknown group.
"Surrender and identify yourselves, or be eliminated."
The lead figure halted and stared up at the drone with a pair of glowing crimson cybernetic eyes. Now having a clear picture, they saw that the figure was an intimidating-looking being with clumped, oily black fur. Their terrifying cybernetics were extensive, and their bolted, razor-sharp maw twisted into a mocking smirk.
"Come and try it, vermin! Cack!"
The figure coughed out a harsh laugh as twin Gatling blasters spooled up on each of his wrists before turning the drone to smithereens.
"Good," Carl growled over comms. "I've been waiting for a good scrap."
"Be careful," Slora warned. "I recognize that one. He's one of the ones that attacked Cypherport."
"Who is he?"
Grian asked nobody in particular, hoping for some kind of answer.
"We don't know who they are," Sabistra answered, "but they didn't hesitate to slaughter anyone they came across. Like I told you, we slipped away in the chaos and observed remotely." "Then I propose we get acquainted,"
Svarzor chuckled before casting a spell. Outside the perimeter of the base, Skitterdeath roared out to his elite squad of cyberzombies, dreadbeasts, and silencers. He knew not who this group was, but they had information on the outsider, and in the name of the Destroyer, he would get it. He growled in eager anticipation, as his cybernetic eyes viewed many shapes moving in the distance.
Kill them all!